Powered or manual toothbrush? Does it really make a difference? Well, today we're here to find out. My literature review decided to focus on a comparison between either using a powered toothbrush or a manual toothbrush and its effects on our oral hygiene. So that being said, powered toothbrushes have been around for approximately 60 years, and people and producers and developers have long argued that power toothbrushes are way more effective at improving oral health. And we haven't really seen many changes with manual toothbrushes, yet we see them in the grocery store all the time. And quite frankly, a lot of people still use manual toothbrushes. So I wanted to just figure out which toothbrush is actually better for oral health. And to set some parameters as to how we're going to determine which toothbrush is better, I wanted to define what oral hygiene is and what oral health is. According to the CDC, there are two primary factors that go into oral health, or issues with oral health, I should say. The first is tooth decay or cavities, and that's when you start developing permanent holes in your enamel. And the second one is periodontal disease or gum disease, which is when you have bacteria buildup that begins to recede your gum line and it exposes more and more of your tooth enamel that's beneath your gums. The underlying issue with both of these problems with oral health is bacteria buildup or plaque buildup. Now that we understand that plaque buildup is the main issue with oral hygiene, it becomes obvious that brushing our teeth becomes of huge importance because that's how we remove plaque. And that is how we're going to be comparing which toothbrush is more effective at plaque removal. I wanted to look at a few different patient demographics, including patients who were geriatric, meaning they're older than 75, or patients who had physical disabilities and had a caretaker in this study, as well as patients who are healthy and are able to brush their teeth on their own accord. So the findings that we had with patients in long-term care facilities showed that powered toothbrushes tended to be far more effective at improving overall oral health. They reduced plaque significantly more, regardless of it being a caretaker who's brushing the patient's teeth or if it was the patient who is brushing their teeth unassisted. And that could have been for reasons such as, with the vibrations, you don't need to push as hard, and with the lack of strength, it's just better off for removing that plaque. But there is a significant difference between plaque removal of a manual toothbrush compared to a powered toothbrush in that environment. I looked at real-world study environments as well, or non-structured environments, where patients were instructed to brush with either a powered or a manual toothbrush, given the same toothpaste. And the data showed some different results. And the data primarily showed that between a powered and a manual toothbrush, there wasn't really any significant clinical or statistical differences in plaque index or pocket depths detected between the two groups, whether or not they used a power or a manual toothbrush. And then in a structured environment, this is an environment where patients are, they're instructed, they're overviewed by a dental professional who teaches the patient exactly how to brush their teeth. They're using a specific toothbrush, whether it be a powered or a manual toothbrush, and a specific type of toothpaste. And these are the studies that, they don't necessarily replicate real world conditions, but their results in the data is replicable the easiest. And most of these studies kind of had a similar conclusion. Initially, powered toothbrushes seem to be far and away more effective at removing plaque and improving that oral health. But what each study began to notice around the 2 or 3 week mark is that the difference in plaque removal between a manual and a powered toothbrush becomes less and less, to the point where they're almost the same. In And there's one quote that I specifically noted in one of the research articles that stated, but after 3 weeks of treatment, the difference in plaque scores and gingival recession had almost disappeared. And this is something that came up over and over again within these studies, is that these patients began to notice similar results after about the 3 week mark. So long as they were consistent with their brushing, that plaque removal was about the same. Which brings me to a kind of less than satisfactory conclusion of comparing whether or not a power toothbrush is better than a manual toothbrush in improving oral health. And it appears to be that regardless of the toothbrush that you use, it comes down to being consistent with your oral health habits in order to improve your oral health or to maintain your oral health. And I'd like to make a side note that power toothbrushes are significantly better for patients with those disabilities or older patients who cannot brush or use their arms as well. But in the long run, the difference between a powered and manual toothbrush really comes down to user preference. If you prefer using a powered toothbrush, then great. If you prefer using a manual toothbrush, then great. One's significantly cheaper than the other. However, we can understand that whichever way you choose to, achieve your oral health, it comes down to consistency regardless of which toothbrush you're using. And those are the findings that I had. Thanks.